First of all, the technical knowledge that you have about your thing, it is unbeatable. Ryan McBeth,
Oh,
for the
thank you.
very first time, welcome you on the show. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
joining us.
Absolutely. So happy to be here, man. Thank you for being a fan. Thank you for sharing a cigar with me.
So, like, when I think of future wars from now, I think that um, all the best video game players would be the highest paid
Hmm.
soldiers, and the war is gonna be like a gaming zone with people sitting on computers with virtual reality glasses on, and fighting a war like 500 kilometers or 1,000 kilometers away, and then after that, another era after that, I see just one guy in that club, in that zone, computer
Hmm.
zone, and the rest of it is being automized, and one person per lab would be operating all this. Am I going crazy with my thoughts, or what is going on?
I don't think you're crazy. I think it's certainly you're always gonna need infantrymen. You're human beings to take and hold ground, and there's a couple of reasons for that. But one of those reasons is that the battery technology hasn't really reached a point where we can have Terminator robots, right, carrying weapons or with their weapons for arms, shooting people. I think I did a video about this, how human fat, like just fat and carbohydrates. All right, it's 12 times more dense than like even our best lithium battery technology. So whenever you see like robotic dogs, or you see like here's this new robotic Chinese whatever, you know, oh, that's great, but when at the end of the day, those robots can only last an hour, right?
Hmm.
Because the battery will wear down. So a soldier, I mean, as long as you're feeding that soldier can run almost indefinitely. It needs sleep, but maybe we can reach a point where you have battery powered robots guarding these soldiers as they sleep. And of course, it's not a bad way to augment a soldier's ability. Like if I have to go in and clear a house, why not use a robot to do that specific thing? And once it's clear that I occupy the house, then we go recharge the robot. Yeah, yeah, you can do that. But for the most part, the idea of bipedal robots or even tracked vehicles that are battery powered, there's a limited battery life in those vehicles, and it's not a practical thing to have a single soldier sitting in a command post commanding some sort of ground vehicle when infantrymen can do it can do it even better.
But
So.
if we imagine an enemy force attacking with their drones, it's gonna be better if we have our own drones, because making a human face a drone would be like stupidity.
Well, the type of drone can vary, right? You have to use it for a very specific purpose. Just a thing that I don't believe will happen is the idea of like one dude sitting in a control room overseeing fields of robots. You might see that when it comes to an environment well, people call them drone swarms. I actually
Yeah.
don't like that name. I like the term drone constellation better, because nobody's ever told me what a swarm is. How many drones are in a swarm? Is it two? Well, probably not. Maybe
Ah.
it's three. Is it 10? And there's this whole fantasy of, oh, we're gonna have like they'll show like the Chinese dragon, going up and down in a big drone swarm, and those drones aren't communicating with each other. They're following a preset program, right? And one of the issues is spectrum. There's only a limited amount of spectrum that's available. And also remember, these drones, if they're especially if they're doing any kind of frequency hopping, so that way they don't get jammed as they're talking to each other. So they're hopping up and down that spectrum, right? So now you have to clear this big old block of spectrum so all these drones can talk to each other. There's just not enough spectrum to control hundreds of drones. Right? There's just not enough. Right? They're going to be stepping on each other, talking to each other. So the idea of the like drone swarms, these massive swarms of 1,000 drones, I don't really see that happening. I could see maybe 10, right? See maybe 10 drones. So it's you have to be very careful when you think of that guy in a bunker with with his visor on,
Mm-hmm.
controlling these vast fields of drones, because maybe he can control one or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily hundreds.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is gonna be a very good conversation.
Okay.
So we're gonna first we're gonna let our viewers know that we are gonna like slice this conversation into four parts. We're gonna be talking about the China parade and the weapons used in it, the Ukraine-Russia war, cyber attacks during war, cyber attacks as warfare, and then we're gonna have a little bit more of your opinion about what you think the future of the war is gonna be. So let's move towards the China parade. You saw the Chinese parade. I just want an overview,
Mhm.
then we can like break it up.
Sure. So the Chinese parade, look, they do this. This is their Victory Day, essentially, their victory over Japan. And the parade was pretty interesting because it's not a parade necessarily for the internal Chinese people. Now, first off, I have to say that one of the things they included was old World War II veterans, which I personally thought was pretty cool. Seeing these dudes who 100 years ago were freaking heroes, right? And now they get to see how far their army has come in 100 years, which I think is those their hearts must have been beaming with pride, seeing all of their soldiers who are now a modern army. And this modernization took place over, my God, it took place over 20 years, roughly. So yeah, the that kind of I thought that was pretty cool, seeing that part of the parade. Equipment wise, the parade is more for everybody else. It's not necessarily for internal Chinese consumption, where China is kind of saying to the world, look at our weapons capabilities and look what we have. And I don't believe that all of those particular weapons are necessarily deployable. What is kind of interesting is you saw the QBZ 191, which is China's new rifle, which is patterned. It's I would say a standard pattern rifle. The magazine is in front of the pistol grip on that rifle. And China experimented with a bullpup design, the QBZ 95. The first time you saw that was in Hong Kong in 1999. And it's almost like every country goes through a bullpup phase. Yeah, some teenagers go through a goth phase where they dress up all emo, wearing black, and they wear mascara and all that. Every country seems to go through a bullpup phase. They think we're gonna make this bullpup rifle, and they work it for 20 years and go, yeah, didn't quite work out. And then they go back to the standard pattern rifle. But the question is, if China was just using a rifle for day-to-day stuff, like day-to-day army training, a bullpup rifle is fine, especially if you're not really going to go into combat with anyone. So why, in the past 5 years, did they introduce the QBZ 191? Well, it's probably because they're going to need it to attack China, because they need an honest to God real weapon system to fight China or to fight Taiwan. So yeah, that's most likely the reason why they were able to get these out so rapidly and field like every single person with the exception of the ceremonial honor guard who had SKS rifles and nickel-plated AK-47s. Those guys had QBZ 191s, which is pretty impressive. They were able to field these, I want to say in their whole army, but at least among the people that were at the parade.
How did you take? What was your opinion about their synchronization amongst each other? About their movement? How,
If you practice that enough, you're going to get good at it. People joked about the American Army, how when we did a parade for the Army's 250th birthday, like some of the soldiers weren't marching very well. The Old Guard, which is a unit that's in Washington D.C. that does all the ceremonies and all of the funeral details, they did great. But when you're bringing in soldiers from the 101st and you're bringing in soldiers from the 82nd, you don't really march all that much when you're on active duty. Instead, you're doing training every freaking day. You're doing training, right? So they probably got like, a 3-day course, and all right, here's how we're gonna march, and it just looks like crap, right? But for the Chinese, like, look, we're gonna have you doing this 3 months. They probably practiced that parade for 3 months. Marching doesn't necessarily make you a better soldier. It looks pretty cool, but they had the time to make this look really good. This was probably in the works for at least 2 years planning this thing because they knew their 80th anniversary of the end of the war was coming up, and they made it look really good.
what do you think about the tanks that they showed during the parade?
What's kind of interesting isn't necessarily their tanks, but their amphibious armored vehicles, some of which have assault guns. That's kind of a Chinese thing. The original BMP, which was a Russian armored personnel carrier, it had I want to say a 73 millimeter gun on the thing. And the whole idea was that this gun was going to be used to support the infantry as the infantry assaulted something. They would use the 73 millimeter cannon to do support by fire. And what's kind of interesting is that a lot of that role has kind of been taken over by an armored personnel carrier with a 20, 25, 30 millimeter chain gun doing support by fire. But it seems like some of these Chinese vehicles, these Chinese armored personnel carriers, were using the older concept of assault guns. So they're definitely kind of experimenting, seeing what works and what doesn't. And for whatever reason, they decided to go with the assault gun. And that might be because they may be more afraid of Taiwanese fortifications, like concrete fortifications. Whereas when the United States developed something like the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle, we were moreover afraid of firing at assaulting Russian or Soviet infantry. So we need something that can switch between high explosive and armor piercing, because it can be dual use against Soviet armored personnel carriers and high explosive against oncoming infantry. And we weren't as concerned about attacking bunkers, because a war in Europe would have meant, at least for the first couple of weeks, a defensive war against the Russians before the Army National Guard could get across the ocean and support the army for a counterattack. So it's kind of interesting is seeing the assault guns on some of those Chinese armored personnel carriers. They definitely decided, like, hey, this is the route we're going, and it's most likely because they intend to face bunkers in Taiwan.
So if we come towards the laser guns and the drones
Mhm.
and the dog that we saw or a wolf,
Mhm.
what do you think about them? What do you think about the laser guns that they have installed on top of cars? But they were actually saying that it's going to be used against incoming drones.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get it to work, that's great. One of the issues with drones on the battlefield is that, or with lasers on the battlefield, is what is there a lot of on the battlefield? Smoke, right? A lot of smoke on the battlefield. And so there's this theory that lasers are going to fix everything, right? Like we're going to use lasers and that it's going to cost 10 cents per shot firing at these drones. But one of the issues that you get with lasers is that lasers can be temperamental. They're also very power hungry and they don't work very well in smoke, dust, and rain. Whereas using a drone or a counter drone munition to hit that drone, it's a little bit more expensive, but you can use it in rain, you can use it in fog, you can use it in smoke. So lasers are great as long as it is a nice clear day. If it's not a nice clear day, you're going to have some problems. And I actually don't know the current weather conditions in Taiwan, but you can assume that eventually it rains, right? And so it's not necessarily an end all be all, but if they've gotten that thing to work, you saw the truck they put that laser on.
Yeah.
That's a massive truck. What does that also need? It needs fuel, right? So yeah, you can say, oh well, these lasers cost 10 cents a shot. Okay, but you have to get that fuel all the way to that laser, and then essentially that laser weapon is only good for one thing, and that is taking out drones or taking out perhaps missiles if it can hit it fast enough. All right, so now you have a weapon that's expensive, requires a hell of a lot of fuel to run the generator, and is temperamental, right? And can only be used for one thing. Whereas if you take something like a mounted anti-aircraft gun, even something like the old ZSU 423, which is that quad-mounted 23 millimeter gun that Russia kind of got famous, if you look at that, what you have is a weapon that can be used to shoot down enemy aircraft. It can also be used to shoot down drones. It can also be used to provide support by fire. So let's say you're in a city with large buildings. The guns on those things can elevate to 70 degrees to hit targets that are on top of the building or in the wind on the upper floors of a building that tank barrels can't quite reach. That laser weapon, though, is probably so darn expensive, it's going to be behind the battlefield. It's going to be behind the FIBA, the forward edge battle area. So that gun, or that laser gun, might be protecting like the headquarters or something like that. So you just spent a heck of a lot of money on something that essentially only has one use.
They were
And
saying,
that isn't,
yeah.
yeah. And that isn't, that it's a very good use, right? It's a great use case, but that isn't necessarily the optimal
Yeah.
use case.
So I heard in the commentary they were saying that it can be taken off the truck and put it on ships as well. And I think that's the main idea. I
Yeah,
think kind of be good if they place it on to protect ships.
absolutely. It can be good if it's placed on ships. It'll probably be used in conjunction with other munitions. If you're at the point, I can tell you this, when you're on a ship, if you're at the point where you're using a close-in weapon system, things have already gone to hell. Right? That's really bad if you're at the point where you're using a close-in weapon system. So it's great that you have this laser weapon that can be used in multiple circumstances. The issue that you're going to face is it's going to take, when you're firing at a missile that's coming toward you, that laser is shooting. It has to hold on that specific section of incoming missile for a certain amount of time before that missile heats up and explodes. So let's say that's 10 seconds, right? Missiles travel so fast these days that if you're holding on that incoming missile for 10 seconds, you might not have that be able to pivot to the next one and fire. So it is a tool in the toolkit. I also saw, and this was something else that was there, there was a almost like a rolling airframe missile launcher, a Chinese equivalent of a rolling airframe missile launcher. I can't remember the exact nomenclature from it, but I believe that's a 12 cell or perhaps 24 cell launcher, and that's useful, right? Because you can fire 24 of those really, really fast. You got 24 missiles coming in, you can take out those 24 missiles, and then you can use the laser for any any squirters that kind of get through, right? So it is another tool in the toolkit, assuming that they've gotten it to work really well.
What about the drones? Such huge drones, B-2 bomber looking drones. Did you see them?
Well, I believe those were the equivalent of their. I believe those are the equivalent of their the loyal wingman system. What
Yeah.
we call the X. I want to say the X-48 Valkyrie. I believe I might be getting the terminology wrong, but there are a couple of contracts out there right now in the U.S. Army for for a loyal wingman, and the idea is that this thing works in an autonomous or perhaps semi-autonomous mode, where the drone will link up with a manned fighter and go off and do something, or perhaps sacrifice itself, or perhaps act as a weapon truck or a bomb truck. So that way, when the main fighter says, I want to attack this plane, the drone fires its own missile first, right? That way it can get rid of its ordnance first, or it can work in conjunction with other drones or other manned aircraft and act as that bomb truck. So the other aircraft might carry less ordnance or carry more special purpose ordnance. So yeah, the it's we don't know how well the system works. All we know is that they put it on a flatbed truck and paraded it. Right? It could be a VisMod, a visually modified mock-up of a concept they want. We haven't actually seen it fly. Whereas if you go on to the U.S. Army's photo image archive, which is called DVIDs, that's a genuine, honest to God flight of the Valkyrie, right? You see that thing flying, you see it taking off, you see it landing. We haven't seen that from China, at least not yet. That could be coming though.
Okay. Any other thing that you want to mention that you remember of the China parade?
Yeah, I want to talk about women. Um, there is now that we have a more conservative element in our White House, there are some people who don't believe that women belong in the military or women belong in combat, but where they say our military is too woke, we're promoting women without them earning their positions. But what I saw in China is a hell of a lot of women. And you take a look at that, and those women, they might be in rear line support roles, but a woman can fire an anti-aircraft missile just as good as a man, right? So that is certainly something that we need to reevaluate, or at least our administration needs to reevaluate, because if we're kind of going down the path of maybe women shouldn't be in combat roles, well, look at China. China's figured it out. And seeing those women there, and I know China just recently, not recently, I think about 3-4 years ago, they have their first Chinese naval pilot, so Chinese fighter pilot. That is something we need to be on the lookout for, because when you're using your entire population, I've often said that our military, we need to involve everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're a male, female, gay, or transgender. We need to figure out a role for you, because there's so few people willing to join the military and even can pass the physical fitness test. A lot of Americans are fat, right? Doesn't look like Pakistan. Everyone's all skinny. A lot of Americans are fat. And I want to say about 70% of Americans aren't even eligible for the military, because they smoke pot, they smoke weed, or they're overweight, or they have mental health problems. So what we shouldn't be doing is excluding people. In China, You look at China, who is now including women. That is an entire another resource that you can draw from when it comes to combat power, and that's certainly something that we should remember moving forward.
Wow. So before we move on to the Ukraine-Russia war, I would want to get an opinion of yours. You know what happened between Pakistan and India. What do you think? What's
Mm-hmm.
your opinion about it?
I think that India was fighting a war from 2000, and Pakistan was fighting a war from today. So you have a lot of people like to look at the Chinese fighters. I think it was the J-16 that was primarily used by Pakistan.
J-10Cs.
J-10C. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
And people, oh, look at the J-10, or look at the J-10C, and the J-10C is just a platform. It's a 4.5 generation fighter. What Pakistan was doing was sharing data between all those J-10Cs and working with the Saab, oh my God, the Saab AWACS that they had, the early warning control system.
Yep.
And I think Pakistan has more AWACS aircraft. I think India only has like 4 or 5, and they're like Kohlers. Was it AN-72 Kohler, I believe, is the name of their AWACS aircraft. It's basically an old Russian aircraft, and I think they have 2 additional ones. It might be Gulfstreams. I'm trying. This is the bad part of being on a podcast because people going, no, actually, it's this. And like, yeah, I'm trying to do this from memory, dude. But I believe they only have 5 of those aircraft, whereas Pakistan heavily invested in not only early warning aircraft, but using data links. And missiles are great, jet aircraft are great, but now what Pakistan has is jet aircraft that can talk to each other. So China was doing multi-domain warfare, where they had Pakistan was doing multi-domain warfare, where other aircraft were talking to each other, whereas India was fighting like it was the year 2000, and they didn't do so well, right? So that kind of shows you the power of joint all-domain operations, where you have a genuine, honest to God networked system of systems. And that is the real power of the Pakistani Air Force. And that's why they were able to really uh, spank India to a point where I still don't think we don't, I still think even today, India hasn't admitted how many aircraft they
Yeah,
lost,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yep, yep.
Like they don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. And now it's
But
so old that we also don't want to talk about it. It's so old now.
yeah,
The
all right.
media is still saying stuff that are unbelievable. I don't know if you went through Indian media that day. They were saying that they had captured Lahore, they had captured Karachi. Indian media was saying that,
Well,
and during the night of the 6th and 7th.
well, one of the reasons that you see that is that India is very, very heavily influenced by Russia. So I think that they're trying to use like a Russian level of
Propaganda.
disinformation and propaganda, and it just it's just they're just not good at it.
Yeah,
Like some things should be left.
true. Okay, so if we talk about Russia and Ukraine war, what are the biggest highlights that you can give to our audience? Because our audiences went through the wars of these regions more and have heard less of the Ukraine-Russia war. So if you talk about technology-wise, the highlights of this war, what can it be? It can also be incidents or equipments.
Yeah. So I can tell you that when the war first started, technology was improving at a rate of every 6 to 8 months, there was some new innovation. Now it's coming every 6 to 8 weeks. And I was contracted for the military to do a presentation about drone warfare in Ukraine, and that particular video or that particular briefing is no longer valid. It's been so the technology has there's been two iterations of tech since I did that war. So what you have is this currently this organization where you're dealing with you've gone from drones that are controlled by a human being over the radio to drones that were fiber optic guided, and now you're seeing drones with limited AI decision making capability.
Okay.
And it used to be that you know AI was used in AI was used in the terminal guidance, right? Like that didn't freak people out. The idea that a human being set the target and you launch a missile, and then as that missile gets close to the target, it turns its radar on, and then it turns into a kamikaze killer, or very primitive AI in the sense of, oh, that thing looks like a ship, let me go after that ship, right? And now what we're seeing is we're starting to see the AI get further and further back. Like a human might still launch that weapon, but now it's the AI that is determining which target to strike. So we're moving further and further back in the kill chain when it comes to AI. And that's what we're starting to see in Ukraine, where they have a drone called the Seth, which is almost like a copy of the Shahed. And that drone, you can set a profile on that Seth and say, I want you to find a tank. And if you can't find a tank, I want you to find an armored personnel carrier. And if you can't find that, I want you to find a command post. And if you can't find any of those things within 20 minutes, then return to base and land.
No way.
And that's pretty interesting because you've gotten further back in that AI kill chain, and you can just send these things out. I've also seen Ukraine send out a controller drone, and those so far it's like a three drone swarm. That's reasonable because now you're only communicating, you're only using radio signals between two other vehicles or three vehicles total. So you have a controller that has the ISR on it, the intelligence surveillance reconnaissance, that finds the bad guy, that finds the target, and then the you send the attack drones that are linked to the ISR drone. You send that over to actually strike the target.
Wow.
Yeah.
We've been watching a lot of videos online on YouTube, drones with such precision attacks. I mean, they're trying to find way through bunkers and trying to find way through openings of tanks. Uh, just
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's a well, I think a lot of the hitting like inside the hatch of a tank, that's that might be, I don't want to say it's beyond the capability. I mean, it'll get there eventually, assuming the hatch is open. But I think what we're certainly going to see is, or what we've seen recently is top attack is kind of the new issue. Like for the longest time, tanks had armor on the front, right? They put armor on the front and on the sides because that's where the threat is going to come from. But top attack has changed all that to the point where now you have to worry about the deck plate. Because it used to be the top and the bottom were the least armored places of a tank, usually just armored against artillery fragments. And now you have to worry about top attack munitions that can not only find you, but figure out where your top is and strike your top directly. And that's pretty dangerous if you're a tanker. So yeah, the top attack has changed a lot, and it's the computer software inside these weapons that is enabling that top attack to happen without any kind of human intervention. So that means it happens faster than any other. It happens faster than a human can react to, and it happens faster than the crew can react to.
So what defenses would a tanker have in the coming days?
So there's a thing called the survivability onion, and the first layer of the survivability onion is don't be there, right? So constantly keep moving, don't be there. And the second is don't be seen. So if you are there, don't be seen. So now we have to deal with masking, right? It used to be that we would go out into the field and, masking is camouflage. So it used to go out into the field and we'd throw up a bunch of camouflage and would go, okay, our tank, now our tank looks like it's covered in branches, right? Like that's. But the masking is important, and we not only have to mask in the visual spectrum, but we also have to mask in the thermal spectrum. So you can cover a tank with branches, right? But now what happens? Well, you have a tank covered in branches, but if you're not using emissions control on your radio, well, now you can be identified, right? So we also have to worry about the fact that you might be camouflaged under a canopy or under a tree line, but your radios are still emitting. So you're not masked in the radio frequency spectrum. You're not masked in the thermal spectrum because your engine is still running, right? So we have to think about masking in multiple spectrums. And that's something that we really haven't thought about. We've never really had to think. We've had to think about MCON because, like most people know, like, all right, I can't hold down my radio mic for 10 seconds because the enemy might find me. That's why you might say, Roger out, quick burst of a message. But now, when you're dealing with thermal signatures, and even the cheapest drones have good thermal cameras, well, how do you reduce your thermal signature, right? How do you reduce your emissions on a radio when every single gun truck is broadcasting its position to other gun trucks with this network-centric warfare? And just recently, the U.S. announced the M7 rifle. All right, there's some problems with the rifle. We'll work those problems out. A lot of people talk about like, oh, the rifle is 6.8 millimeters, so you can carry less ammunition, and the rifle kicks a lot. Those are all valid concerns. But one of the things they include with that rifle is a sight that has a laser. And you shoot that laser, and the laser tells you the distance to the target, tells you the humidity, and it gives you an aim point where you should actually aim for the bullet to the target. So now I want you to imagine a platoon of 30 dudes, and they all have lasers. How fast are they going to be detected? If you can be detected, you can be killed, right? So maybe we don't give everybody lasers, right? Or maybe we can teach them, hey, practice MCON until you're on the objective. But those lasers are going to be pretty darn luminous on the battlefield, and they'll lead right back to where you are, right? Tracers work both ways, lasers work both ways. So that's a big thing too. It's emissions control. We're gonna have to figure out how to do that.
So during the Pakistan-India skirmish, there was also cyber warfare going on between both sides. Pakistan claims that
Yeah.
the electricity of a lot of places of India went down, and our former air chief in during a conference in America said that I can just give you one picture that the last Rafale, when it was when they were taking it down, when the Rafale was landing in Kashmir, the pilots couldn't see the runway because the lights were off and the entire thing was off. So that he was talking about cyber warfare, and that they have like this sort of a unit which works during air combat. So
Hmm.
I was just curious about that. How would this affect war now? I mean, it's even beyond uh, the battle now. It's actually in the grid stations.
Yeah, I mean, well, not just that, but yeah, I'm not that concerned about cyber warfare, because that's just another component. I'm actually more concerned about the information warfare, which is a component of cyber warfare. Once, and this was brilliant what Pakistan did. Once India attacked, one of the things that they did was they claimed that they shot down a Rafale, they claimed they shot down a MiG 29. And what it did was it changed the narrative to not to how many planes were shot down or, oh my God, India just attacked Pakistan. Did Pakistan defend itself? It turned it down to people looking at footage going, well, did they shoot down the MiG 29? And it changed the whole narrative as to what was destroyed as opposed to who was right or who was wrong. And that was actually a information warfare standpoint. That was absolutely brilliant. That was a that was a brilliant thing to do because it totally flipped the narrative. I could see some people saying that, when you look at what happened in Kashmir, you could say, all right, India was looking for an excuse, or Modi was looking for an excuse to just do something, and I could see I could see India's point, right, to fighting back against rebels. And by talking about what planes were shot down and now having people argue about what planes were shot down, it totally blew out India's justification and it turned into a search for exactly what planes were shot down. And because India is as bad as Russia when it comes to um, secrecy, right, with their military, which you would not normally see in a democracy, what you have is a country that lost control of the narrative. And Pakistan certainly won the narrative. They won the air war and they won the narrative. And now you got India going, crap, we're doing this the wrong freaking way. Cyber warfare. I mean, I want to say that's nothing new. It can be expected. Now, first off, you'd figure India would have some great cyber defense people. Apparently, they don't. I haven't heard this particular story about the runway lights being turned off, but that's not great. But look, they can get emergency pots out there, flares like that. That's not that big of a deal. And cyber warfare, it's kind of weird because for the most part, military systems are hardened or they're air gapped. And it's really hard to launch a cyber attack against a military system because these cyber systems are either they're air gapped or they have such good defenses that you can't really get to them. So that means if you're going to launch a cyber war, it's going to be against the civilian population, and you really shouldn't be attacking civilians. I mean, you can launch a cyber attack against a bank or against communication systems. That's primarily going to affect civilians. You might not necessarily reach your war aims with that. It's more like an annoyance, because even soldiers use banks, right? They have to transfer money, or even like rail yards, like you can say dual use stuff, rail yard switching locations. They might not have the same cyber defenses as a military organization. You could probably say they're valid targets, right? Because they're infrastructure targets. Um, so cyber warfare is important, but I think that there's this general idea that when one country attacks another, it can use cyber attacks to maybe even have the same effects as as kinetic attacks. And oh, we're going to shut down the enemy's radar, and you really can't do that. Now, information warfare side, there's what 100 180 million 280. How many Muslims are in India? 300 million,
Uh, uh,
roughly.
yeah, 300 million.
So I'm sure at least one of those dudes it would be like, yeah, let's do a terrorist attack against India. So that to me, the 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 real strength of Pakistan is that Pakistan could have used information warfare and armed cells inside of India, radicalized people, and now you might not get 300 million people to do it, but all you need is 12 dudes with rifles to cause a hell of a lot of trouble. And that would be a more devastating attack than any sort of military action that Pakistan could perform. So using information war as a kinetic effector, that's a big one to me. When I actually was not in favor of America attacking Iran with our B-2 bombers. And that's not because I have any sympathy for the Iranians, at least the Iranian government. The Iranian people are great. The government, not so much. But what my fear was that America's southern border had been open for about 4 years in the previous administration. We have no clue who the hell is here. And if I were Iran, I would certainly send sleeper agents up into the United States. And my fear was that if we attacked Iran, Iran would activate those sleeper agents, and we would see terrorist cells operating inside of America randomly every day. That didn't happen, but if I was talking with the president, I probably would have counseled him against actually attacking Iran
Talking about
because of that information. Yeah,
talking about the
go
attack
on.
on Iran. What do you think about the attack on Qatar and the Israeli attack on Qatar? How did it happen in your view? I saw your short video on
Yeah,
your Instagram, and you were of the view
yeah.
that it's not possible without the top tier of the Qatari government not being involved in this. Explain.
Yeah, so I believe that the Qataris are nothing if not practical. I think they're very practical people. And one of the reasons that they established Al Jazeera or they support Al Jazeera, is that they want to have a voice in world affairs. So I think when it comes to Hamas, what they're essentially doing is they're trying to play both sides. Like they want to be like the Turkey of the Arab world, where like we're gonna befriend Russia, we're gonna befriend Ukraine, and we're gonna try to like kind of work both sides. That way we can be players, right? We can be the mediators in any kind of dispute. And in a lot of ways, and this is horrible to say, especially if you're a Palestinian, among the Arab world, the Palestinians are very useful because you can point to the Palestinians and say, look how these Palestinians are being treated by Israel. Isn't it horrible? And by pointing at them, the 140 million Arabs living in Egypt aren't going, man, our government kind of sucks too, right? So it's almost useful to have the Palestinians as an underdog, because there's a lot of Arab countries that don't have the freedoms that we have. Even in Pakistan, which is a democracy, you know, a lot of these countries are run by strongmen or kings. And so their people don't necessarily have the same freedoms that people have in Western democracies. So it's useful to point at the Palestinians and go, look how horrible this is. By the way, don't look at our government. So I think that Qatar sees the writing on the wall that Hamas is probably going to be finished in the next 30 to 60 days in this one final push on Gaza City. And it would have been on brand for Qatar to say to Israel, do your thing. Here's where they are, launch a couple of rockets. Qatar has Patriot missiles. Now, granted, they're pointed toward Iran, but they might have been able to turn those things and shoot down those missiles if they wanted to. And it could just be, because I believe Israel fired ballistic missiles. So this could be a thing where Qatar gets to win in two ways. Number one, they get to take out Hamas, so they don't have to be the bad guys kicking Hamas out of their country. And then the whole Arab world goes, "Oh, look what Israel did." So Hamas wins either way. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant, like, these are smart people. They know what they're doing. So I think that was Qatar's angle there of like, let's allow Israel to take these guys out, and then we can blame the
But
Jews and
Ryan,
everybody wins.
Ryan, they
Yeah.
missed. They missed, man. This, like, if you are entering a house like
Yeah.
with force and you don't find those people,
Yeah.
imagine Osama bin Laden not in that complex in Aptabad. That would have been a
Yeah.
disaster, man. you you
Yeah.
you you, you might be right. You might be right that the Qataris, but I think they might be a deal under the table as well. The Qataris told them that, man, this is gonna happen. They will miss it. You are not supposed to go there. Okay, so they didn't go there.
Yeah.
So now the Israelis are exposed as well. The Americans are
Yeah.
exposed as well, and also the Qataris are exposed as well. But at the same time, you know that they missed. If you hit a target and that misses, that is a big thing. But no one is even like talking about that. I mean, they didn't get anyone. By the way, these are the
Yeah. They didn't get
politics of
anyone
stuff.
important.
These are the politics of stuff. But I'm just saying that this is another theory that is being rumored here in our part of the world.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't. Look, sometimes you miss, right? Sometimes you miss, and that's not the greatest thing, right? But I personally believe that yeah, I think Qatar was in on it, and people, it could just be as simple as dudes just didn't get to the meeting in time. Sometimes look,
But yeah, if
one
we,
thing I can tell you about Arabs, always yalla, always late, right?
if we like break down, if we like think that okay, the Qataris were not on board, is there any
Hmm.
way that the Israelis could like bypass their air defense? I mean, they know the spots or they know the radiuses of the radars. Is there any way that they could like?
Qatar is I mean, maybe Qatar is so small though, and I think these guys are in Doha, right? So if you have a Patriot system, it's covering Doha, right? And it has a 100-mile range. So I mean, maybe with a ballistic missile, you could have gotten behind it somehow. If you're not looking for it, or it's coming in from a different direction. But I believe they launched the missiles over Saudi Arabia. So that's a good question. I mean, it's certainly possible they could have done it without Qatar knowing. But when I look at what was it, K Benny, like who benefits, like of all the people that benefit, Qatar actually benefits the most, right? Qatar benefits from that strike the most. So I could certainly see them saying, we don't want these dudes in our country anymore, but we don't want to get rid of them ourselves because people will get mad at us. So let's just let the Israelis take them out. People can get mad at the Israelis. Everyone wins except Hamas.
Yeah,
You
and, but
know, oof,
but
oof.
the Qatari
Yeah.
Amir would be like that night. He would be like sleeping, thinking that he's under the like clear skies. He has no protection over him. I mean, if that area of Doha can be bombed, any area of Qatar can be bombed. I mean, it could be anyone. He would be feeling so unsafe sleeping uh, in his gigantic house, uh, thinking
Yeah.
that I am just sleeping under the sky. I'm technically under the sky.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. Unless these guys somehow cut a deal and we're like, hey, I see what you guys did. We'll lay low for a little while. I don't know. These Hamas dudes, the higher ranking guys, are probably looking around, going, you know what? Maybe we need to find a new set of friends, and they might be fresh out of friends too. I don't know who would take them. I don't even think Afghanistan wants them. Like Afghanistan, you look at the Afghans; they just want to be left the hell alone,
Yeah, they've got their own
right?
problems going on.
they just want to do their own thing. So I don't even think Hamas can flee Afghanistan. The freaking Taliban would probably like. I know that during the war in Afghanistan, there were some Chechens who went to Afghanistan Chechen snipers who tried to train the Afghans to fight, and the Afghans killed them. Like, dude, we don't even want you here. We just want to be alone. So, like, I don't think Afghanistan would take these dudes.